as we go. So a very big welcome to you all. Welcome back to our Coaching Cafe. It's wonderful to see so many people on the line. And it's Natalie Ashdown here with you. We've just been doing some daggy dancing to the 80s, some 80s hits. And I'm excited to be back with you and to share some of the top trends that we actually see in coaching in 2021. So before I begin, let me just acknowledge our country and acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands on which we meet today and their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities of Australia. We pay our respects to them and to their elders past, present and emerging, and anyone who might be on the line today from an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander descent. And I love our coaching cafes. It's a chance for us to come together from all across the different lands of Australia to meet here on our platform, on our webinar, and to have a really great learning experience together. If you are interested and you are collecting your CCEUs for your coaching credentials, then yes, you can actually get a CCEU for this coaching cafe, and you can just contact us at support to do that. So the agenda for today, yes, that's a picture. I've swapped my corporate picture for me in full Zoom mode with flip charts and everything behind me. So today I want to cover off the 5 trends that we think are going to influence our coaching in 2021. Now, these trends have come from lived experience, as in actually doing coaching with our clients through 2020, and then listening to what they're saying this year and how is it different from last year to this year, but also the extensive reading and research we've done through publications we've received, but also the research that I'm doing through my doctorate studies as well. So a bit of a combination of actually practice what we're hearing in our lived experience of coaching, and also, you know, the academic literature and all the other writings that we're seeing come across our desk. So this is what we're offering. So if you're new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. We are all about creating a community. We come together every Friday at this time. It's 12 noon Melbourne time, no daylight savings now. And we come together to create that community, to share our learning experience, and to have thought-provoking conversations around topics around coaching, but also important topics that are going on in the workplace today. And these sessions are recorded live. They're also then available as a recording. So welcome to you if you're listening to this whilst you're driving your car or out for a run or vacuuming. You can pick up your education and you can pick up your professional development as you go along. As I mentioned, CCUs are available and you can just contact us at support. So if you'd like to interact with me, the best way to do that is via the chat box. And I love picking up your comments and sharing those comments with the group. You can share them with the panelists. You can share your comments with all attendees. And then everyone will pick up your comments as we go as well. Hello, Annie. Welcome. It's great to see you. It's so nice to see everyone come back. Thank you. And welcome to everyone who's new, because that's what we're all about, is creating that great coaching alumni and coming together every Friday just for that short, sharp 30-minute focus on coaching topics, focus on our development. And most importantly, it's not just about me sharing information, it's about you sharing what you're seeing. So when it comes to trends, I'm super keen to hear from you. So please hit that chat box and let me know what you think. Well, let's get into it. There's Sir John Whitmore, unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago now. But the first trend that we are definitely seeing in our coaching, so in our leadership and in the coaching that we're doing with leaders at the moment in the new year, the first trend is about leveraging our ability to adapt and to reinforce new habits. So we had to adapt last year. Yes, we all know that. But the trend we're seeing now is, how do we leverage that ability? We created new abilities last year with the teams and in our coaching. So how do we leverage that now into the new year? And most importantly, reinforce the new habits that are actually working for us. So John Whitmore said that coaching's not hard, It's changing our habits that's hard. So if we were coaching last year and we were coaching people and they started coaching, that's not hard. It's actually reinstalling and changing our habits that's the hard thing. So if we started a certain exercise routine, if we started a certain, particularly things like starting regular catch-ups with the team over Zoom, that became a habit to keep the connections going. We adapted to Teams or Zooms. So how do we keep that as a habit now and reinforce that moving forward? Here are the kind of things that we're seeing. There is definitely, we are still coaching people who are under stress. So there's no doubt about, even though people are coming back to the workplaces now, of course, it's different across all the states, isn't it, in Australia? So we are still coaching people who are under stress, and we need to be helping them respond to those stresses based on personality type. We are still adapting to changing circumstances and the environment. There's a lot of change going on now as people come back to the workplace. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? But we're coaching people. The coaching that we're doing is to enable them to continue to adapt to those changing circumstances and the environment that's going on. We're also seeing a great chance in our coaching now to help people iron out the wrinkles. So where people adapted and did things because they had to, now's the chance to go, okay, let's iron out the wrinkles in those processes that we had. Let's troubleshoot and resolve the friction points. And this is something you're going to hear me talk about a bit more in the Coaching Cafe, actually, is resolving friction points. These are points, they're issues, they're topics, they're points in our communication. It's like the unspoken. Where last year we kind of just went along with it if there was friction points, you know, things that might have been rubbing people up the wrong way. It might have been left unspoken, but now as more people are returning to the workplace, as we're finding new ways to work together, it's not going to be okay anymore to let those friction points continue. I've already done this year a couple of alternative dispute resolutions, a couple of mediation sessions. And what was very interesting is what got left behind last year. So what we didn't bring up is now creating those friction points and the tensions in teams as they come back to work. So it was kind of like we left it, you know, it was 2020. We had to kind of, you know, leave that alone, and there's so much more going on. So we kind of swept things under the carpet a bit. And definitely there's a huge trend in coaching, and I'm picking it up in the mediation services that we're delivering where we need to sort that out now. So for what we're thinking about is it's a chance to take the good from 2020, reinforce and leverage that, create the new habits, sort out the wrinkles, sort out the tension points as we go along. So I'd be very keen to hear what you think about this. Now, these trends are not like this is the number one trend. There's 5 trends I want to talk to you about. I haven't actually prioritized them, but I'd be keen to hear what you think about it as well. The interesting thing is it does vary across states, and we're coaching a lot of teams and a lot of leaders who have dispersed teams. So they have, before COVID, they had dispersed teams in all different states. And of course now that's continued, but they've got teams at various different stages of returning to work. Like in Melbourne, some teams still haven't returned to work, whereas in other states they never left. So that's putting a very interesting challenge on leaders at the moment. It's something that we can really assist leaders in coaching, trying to get them to work out what's the best mix there with their teams. How do they reinforce those new habits? And also, as I mentioned, how do they iron out their wrinkles? The second big trend we're seeing is around leading change. So this is obvious, isn't it? I love this quote from from Robin Williams. No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. I just think it's really, it's just such a lovely quote. So words and ideas can change the world. So this leading change is about really listening, I think now, really listening to people through coaching. Obviously, we provide that service, don't we, to really listen to people, but listen to their words, their ideas, listen to them about how they're leading their change and what that means to people as leaders leading change. In the coaching that I've come back to this year, it's been a very big topic. Now that we have led people through the difficult times, and a number of organizations are still going through those difficult times, there was a CEO that said to me, anyone can lead people through the good times, but it's real leaders that lead people through the difficult times. So now that we have led people through these difficult times and through these changing times, how do we actually lead people out the other side? This has been a real big topic actually in the coaching. We've seen quite a bit of a discussion about it on the discussion boards. So from a trend point of view, from what we're actually seeing, coaching through change, yes, we've always had to do that. It's not new to us, is it? As leaders, it's not new. Change is not new. We've always been having to do that, to coach people, to adapt ourselves as leaders. The trend now is, it feels like now it's a time to leverage though. And you'll hear us talk a lot about that in our coaching cafes, leveraging our strengths, leveraging the skills, leveraging the ideas that are coming out of our people, and coaching people to find out those new ideas and what is possible from a continuous improvement point of view. When we're leading the change or we're coaching our leaders to lead change, we really have to remember that this is potentially a time of forming, storming, norming, performing. So good old Tuckman from 1965, forming, storming, norming, and performing. It's a very good model to go back to. And for those of you that have done our certificate for in workplace and business coaching, we show you, we talk about Tuckman as well. We're going to put a coaching cafe on around the forming, storming, norming, and performing as well. The reason for that is because even though it's like a model from 1965, we turned it into a coaching model. And it's very good to start thinking about, well, actually my team is going through a new storming process, or my team, as they're coming into the new year, are looking at how do they now norm, what are the new norms about how we interact together. So there's a lot of coaching that I've done already this year that's been around reforming teams, re-engaging teams, re-looking at, okay, we got through last year, now what does it mean now in terms of our high performance in the workplace? Calmness is an attractive leadership quality. So I mentioned calmness, and I mentioned vulnerability, and I mentioned authenticity when it comes to leadership. These are 3 words that have come out of the coaching that we've done so far this year. It's a really strong trend in terms of leading change. How do we enable and how do we coach leaders to bring through that calmness, the authenticity and the vulnerability? Because it is a very attractive leadership quality. People really relate to that leadership quality. I asked a couple of leaders, not a couple. Last year was about checking in with people's mental health. And this year, as I came back to coaching, leaders were actually thanking me. 2 or 3 leaders thanked me for checking in on specifically on their mental health last year. And they said to me, I wasn't okay. And in fact, you're the only person who asked me about that. And I'll talk about that in terms of a trend shortly. But really checking in about people's mental health, but also how are they bringing that authenticity and potentially being a bit more vulnerable and saying, look, I wasn't okay, is a really nice trend we're seeing now. People actually saying, it wasn't okay, my experience. And so therefore, this is how we're going to move forward now, or this is what I learned, or, allowing leaders to actually have those reflections is really powerful. The other trend we're really trying to emphasize, but we're also seeing, is about that need to ask for help. I've got 2 leaders I'm coaching at the moment where they're working till 1:30 in the morning. It's like, it's time to like get a handle on that, because work days got extended. You know, we started out really good. We started using that extra 1 hour travel time for exercise. And then people stopped exercising and they just started sitting at their desks from whatever time, 7 p.m. Dinner was cooking. So they didn't actually go around the block for exercise or travel or do the commute. So they just stayed at their desks. So the work hours have been really extended. And the trend is around leaders now and us coaching leaders to ask for help to sort out their work-life balance. There's a lot of that's needed at the moment. Thanks, Guy, for jumping in there as well. And Marie, thanks for jumping in. So thanks, Marie. That's a very important comment. She says, we need to ensure that calmness doesn't come across as indifference. Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? Because just because I'm being calm doesn't mean that I'm indifferent, that there's no empathy there. So it's about talking and communicating, I think, about that as well. Thank you. And Guy, thank you for jumping in. You've said it's also about being consistently calm, because people need to trust that reactions and responses will be measured. Thank you. Yeah, so it's not just I'm calm and then I'm frantic and then I'm calm, or I'm freaking out or whatever. It's that consistent calm that builds trust and builds confidence. And there is definitely a trend in the coaching at the moment around that calmness, authenticity, vulnerability. How can we be authentic with everything that's going on? So bringing that through the coaching, I think, is going to be really important. Yeah. And, you know, what's really interesting here is that leaders led last year. You know, they had to kind of push down all of that, you know, whatever they were experiencing, and lead the organization. So I'm seeing a bit more, and you can tell me if you're seeing this as well in the coaching and in working with the leaders. There's a lot of L&D and organizational development people on the line. There's a bit of discussion going on, actually, where leaders are now actually starting to share some of the pressures and stress and trauma, even about what happened last year, how they had to carry on when they themselves were experiencing uncertainty, changes, you know, all of the pressures of their own home lives, yet they had to then look after everybody else. So there's a bit of that coming out of the coaching at the moment. There's a really great opportunity to coach and to talk to people about that as well. So that kicks in our mental health first aid practices there, really. Thank you. So looking at the third trend, as we've talked about, as I've started to mention, the focus on communication has never been so important. It always has been, it always was, but particularly as we make these transitions. Albert Einstein said, I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. So I often think about what would he say about today, where technology is enabling human interactions or even surpassing human interactions. So it's about how do we really ensure that any technology we're using is enabling communications, which we did last year, really, didn't we? From a focus on communication, there's been a number of workshops we've rolled out now around conversations and coaching conversations, particularly across the 5 levels of conversation. So we put the 5 levels of conversation back into the Certificate 4 in Workplace and Business Coaching to really talk about conversations at different levels. So at the surface level, at the facts level, at the thinking level, the feeling level, and then the inner level. And we'll do a coaching cafe to update you on that as well. But really, it's about being able to have conversations at the different levels. And we've been working with a lot of lawyers where they get to kind of level 3, level 4, level 5, particularly level 4 and level 5 conversations, feeling conversations and inner conversations about what's most important. And they're a bit like, nah, that's outside our comfort zone. So how do we bring some of these extra conversations into our comfort zones is really important in terms of a trend we're seeing. Reestablishing human connections. They're still going on, I don't have 10 minutes of time. I just don't have 10 minutes. So how do we, take the time, turn that into coaching? How do we help people kind of sort out their work-life balance? Not get a handle on work and life and how that's working together now. I agree with you, Camille. She says the quote is so good. He was a prophet for sure for what we're living now. Yeah, absolutely. Maribel, thanks for sharing. She says, yes, my clients are. However, I'm not seeing a reduction in leaders' stress levels. It's true. I'm not seeing a reduction in leaders' stress levels either. So asking, how are they keeping their energy and well-being in front of mind when they're tired? So that's great. I'll reread that again. So Maribel has said, asking people how they're keeping their energy and well-being front of mind when they're tired is really important. So what are they doing about that is a really important conversation. Yeah. And then how do they communicate that to their teams as well? Yeah. The other thing that you will notice in coaching, particularly over the next 3 or 4 months, so we'll run a coaching cafe about this as well, is the right mindset for performance conversations. So for a number of organizations, a number of leaders, a number of managers didn't actually do performance conversations last year. Because of all the stress and everything that was going on, particularly in different states. So they were put on hold. Annual performance reviews or regular performance conversations were kind of put on hold. So that's going to start coming back now. And we need to think about the right mindset for performance conversations. And as I mentioned, of course, we'll do a coaching cafe on that one. It was our most popular cafe from last year. We had so many people on the line. It was wonderful to get that experience. So getting the right mindset now for performance conversations moving forward, very important. And as we've talked about, finding that balance somehow, overcoming virtual meeting fatigue, ensuring, as Maribel has mentioned, that people are keeping energy, well-being at the front of their minds, because I think, whilst we might have started out strong with a bit of exercise routine and stuff like that in our well-being routines, for a number of leaders I'm coaching, it's been put on the back burner again. And the reason for that is because the days just got extended, as I mentioned. So I had one executive in particular. He was riding his bike every single morning, getting out for a 20K bike ride. Caught up with him, a couple of months later. He wasn't doing it. He had started to let that slip. So very keen to hear what you're thinking about these trends as we go along as well. The focus on communication across different levels of conversation, getting into those conversations about how people are actually feeling, about what's most important to them. So those inner conversations are about what's most important, what are we learning, what are we reflecting on, what's good about what happened, how can we take that forward from a continuous improvement point of view. Allowing people to do those reflections is a really important part of our coaching. Alrighty, let's go for number 4, the beautiful Glenn Close, and definitely a focus on mental health. So we had a focus on mental health last year. At Open Door Coaching, we were doing mental health first aid training before 2020 happened. We trained nearly 500 people last year in mental health first aid practices. It's still so important. And, as Glenn Close says, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, more unashamed conversation. I just think that's a beautiful quote. People have shared with me in the coaching that I've done so far this year. One person shared with me that, I'm not broken because I'm still here, but last year nearly broke me. And I just, like, my heart just went out to that person, and we had a conversation about it. And our ability as coaches to enable those conversations, to let people, we're not doing counseling. So we're not doing counseling, we're not doing psychotherapy, or we're not psychologists, but we're just opening up the opportunity to have the conversation around mental health. And also, you know, if there's a referral or we need to, you know, check in if they need counseling, we can do that as well. So really important, particularly because people are coming out of whatever happened last year as well. So thinking about how we start that conversation around mental health with colleagues, particularly recognizing the signs of anxiety and depression is really important. And also that people are still under stress, as you have pointed out. And this is my opinion in terms of a trend. I think we're going to see post-COVID stress and trauma. And the reason I say that is because this has come out of some of the coaching conversations that I've been having so far. When you have an executive say that 2020 didn't break him because he's still here, but he feels broken, you know, there's trauma there, or there's you know, there's opportunity there to have a conversation, and also opportunity to make a referral to a counsellor, or suggest counselling if that's needed. So a bit of debriefing. Yeah. Yeah, Gillian says, even in, that's related to communication. Yeah, our previous trend. She says there's still, like, in communication, still increasing annoyance in people who still haven't learned to mute their microphone or know when to turn the camera off. So yeah, there's still a lot of that going on, isn't it? Yeah. So a focus on mental health from a coaching point of view, I mean, from a coaching point of view, not from a counselling point of view, still really important to be checking in with people. It will always be important. I think the one thing we got out of 2020 is that ability to shed more sunlight, more candor, more unashamed conversations, as Glenn Close mentions. So the highlight for number 5, or the trend for number 5 that we're actually seeing, I love Dr. Seuss. For those of you that know me know that I grew up on Dr. Seuss. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you will go. I just love the quote from "Oh, the places we can go." So I think this is very important now. It's lovely to see this, our focus on continuous development. That's what we're all about here with the Coaching Cafes and other initiatives we've got going on. It's about keeping up the momentum and our motivation now. So it's about, there's a big highlight and trend now around reinvesting in individuals and teams and their development. So that's good for us as coaches, isn't it? But what we're thinking about, well, how do we make sure we're investing in ourselves from a professional development point of view, from a continuous development point of view? Some of us got the opportunity to do that last year, but if you were just like bunkering down and just getting through, then coming out of 2020, me in particular, I've looked at, well, what professional development am I now locking in? What am I going to be focusing on in terms of courses or things I want to learn? And how do we make sure that we kick off our professional development? So I was very keen to get the Coaching Cafe started back up as soon as we could as well. So there you have it. They're the 5 trends that we are seeing. As I said, the trends are coming out of the coaching that we're seeing, the academic literature that's starting to come out. It's coming out of all of the literature and the grey stuff the grey literature that's coming across my desk, and I'm reading an enormous amount of different newsletters from different from Harvard and from McKinsey, and so from reputable organizations, and just kind of looking from a big picture point of view about what are they all saying, what are the trends coming out of here. So these are the top 5 that we've picked out so far. What does that mean in terms of how we work together, what we've got planned from an open door coaching point of view? Well, first of all, there is some excellent government grants available. There's $2,000 in government grants that if you're eligible, you could put towards your training and development. So that's worth checking out. This year, we're kicking off with Coaching Buddy Nights, which we've received a lot of great feedback from. So feel free to kick in with, to join the Coaching Buddy Nights, an opportunity to coach, be coached. If you're doing the Cert 4 or the diploma, you can knock off some of those coaching exercises. But what a great opportunity just to keep our coaching skills up, build confidence. So watch out. We've communicated out about that. There's one coming up shortly. We are all about building a strong alumni. It's an absolute pleasure to be back with you for the Coaching Cafes and to have all your input as we go along. We've got a great program lined up. There's also, we sent out an email. If you want to tell us what topics you want to focus on, then there's a $100 Myer gift, Coles Myer gift voucher available. So feel free to fill out that little survey, win yourself a chance to win a gift voucher. Why not? Most importantly, enjoy your coaching. So that's our ideas for this Coaching Cafe. Feel free to jump in and share any ideas that you might have before we round off. Thank you, Annie. She says, Natalie, thank you. Love the analogy of wrinkles, tension points, and inquiring how to iron them out. Yeah, I'll talk more about friction points. I think there's wrinkles, we need to iron them out. And I think there's wrinkles and friction points that we left alone last year because we needed to. But now as we come back into the workplaces, as we move into we're well and truly into 2021, aren't we? But the more and the more as we go on now, we can't leave those friction points there anymore, the rub points, you're rubbing me up the wrong way with this or that. We can't leave them there anymore. And I say that because 2 of the mediations I've done this year have been exactly around that. So yeah. Thanks, Guy. You're really welcome. And Jonathan, wonderful to see you. Yeah, just send it. If you're interested in the CCEUs, they are offered free of charge. Just send a message to support@opendoorcoaching.com.au and we'll send you out a CCEU certificate. There is about a week's delay because we get so many requests. We have to make up the individual certificates, but they're available. Collect them, store them somewhere important. So if you're doing your credential or you're collecting those professional development points, you'll have them there when the time comes. Wonderful. Well, it's so great to see you all. Thanks for joining in. We are back. We've got a nice program, a fantastic program to offer you. It's going to be so great to get your input and your knowledge and to really create this learning experience together. So I wish you all the best for coaching, and I will look forward to catching up with you all next week. Oh, actually, Annie, you've said liking is better than the good old triggers. Yeah. Thanks again, Natalie. Always better for your inspiration. Oh, thank you. I feel inspired by just by just catching up. And Nicole, I'm glad you're back as well. Good on you, everyone. All right, okay. Have a great week. I will catch up with you next week for our Coaching Cafe.